Welcome everyone to Discover This. Today we're going to talk about what some perceive as the first act of war in the ongoing conflict between the Hells Angels and the Mongols. And we're going to visit a few different sites and kind of show you where this all started and why it's continuing today. So leading into the summer of 1977, the Hells Angels and Mongols had been going at it over the state of California. And basically, the Hells Angels, many years before, had claimed the state of California as their own. In fact, they wore a California bottom rocker on the back of their vests, telling everyone that that was their territory, and no one else could wear that bottom rocker. Well, then the Mongols decided they wanted California, and so they started wearing a California bottom rocker. And that was that's the issue, that's the conflict. So going into the summer of '77, there had been some fights and, fist fights and maybe some shots fired, things like that. But in late summer 1977, 5 members of the San Diego Hells Angels, or Dago Hells Angels as they're known, and you can see on their clubhouse there, decided to up the ante a little bit and come up with a plan to maybe increase the violence. And that plan was to ambush some Mongols as they came back from a Labor Day weekend camp out in the Kern County area of California. So Labor Day weekend 1977, Mongols are leaving Kern County and heading back to where they came from, and 2 Mongols are heading southbound on Interstate 15 in the Deer Springs area of northern San Diego County. And on the backs of their motorcycles are their wives, old ladies, whatever. And the 2 Mongols are Emerson Morris, also known as Redbeard. He's the Secretary Treasurer of the San Diego chapter. And the other one is Raymond Smith, also known as Jingles, and he was the president of the San Diego Mongols. And I think I got the officer positions right, maybe the other way around. But they were traveling through, coming through the Deer Springs Road exit and Hidden Meadows area of Escondido. September 5th, 1977, the Mongols were heading south, passing Deer Springs Road, which is right up there. And off to the side, right in this general area, there was a car pulled over to the side of the highway. In that car were 4 Hells Angels: Guy Castiglione, David Harbridge, Larry Gaskins, and James Eaton. As the Mongols went past, the car pulled back out on the highway, caught up to the Mongols, and it's believed that Guy Castiglione took out his Armalite AR-15 rifle and shot both Mongols. One of the Mongols died at the scene. The other one was taken to Palomar Medical Center in Escondido and died there. Both women were injured, and Emerson Morris's wife ended up being paralyzed. And the car full of Hells Angels continued south on the 15. So on September 9th, 1977, a funeral was going to be held for the 2 Mongols at a mortuary here in the city of Lemon Grove, California, in San Diego County. Now there was a number of Mongols came from all over to pay their respects, as did the family of the 2 Mongols. So as they were gathering outside of the mortuary, kind of behind the mortuary, a car drives up and pulls around to the back. It's a station wagon, and a guy gets out, goes to the back of the car, gets out a wreath of flowers, and takes that wreath inside the mortuary. Then he comes back out, walks past the car that he drove up in, walks around the corner of the building, out to the sidewalk, gets in another car, and is driven away. Shortly thereafter, the car he drove up in blows up, and it sent shrapnel and car parts 200 feet in the air and over a block away. A number of people got hurt. No one was killed, but you know, one Mongols member had a couple broken ribs, another one had a mangled left hand. The father of another Mongol got injured, and there was just a number of people with cuts and bruises and things like that. So because of that bombing and the potential for other violence, the police and sheriff's department that were monitoring the funeral went to the people running the mortuary and the family and said, get the bodies in a hearse and we're taking them to the cemetery now. So you see, the funeral was supposed to be on September 9th, and then they were going to be buried on September 10th, the next day. So they put the bodies in a hearse, and they got a police escort from the mortuary here in Lemon Grove to Mount Hope Cemetery in the city of San Diego. So that wreath of flowers that the guy brought in from the car and took inside the mortuary, the flowers were all red and white, which is the color of the Hells Angels. So with their police escort, the bodies of the Mongols were brought here to Mount Hope Cemetery in San Diego. So once inside Mount Hope Cemetery, the two Mongols members were laid to rest here in this section here. It's at the bottom of the hill when you come in the cemetery. But anyway, they were laid to rest a day early because of the bombing at the mortuary. So again, with a police escort, they were brought here and laid to rest here. So as an added bit of irony, we're going to go to another section of the cemetery, this same cemetery, Mount Hope, and show you another gravesite. So interestingly enough, the Hells Angels who shot and killed those two Mongols, well, they're buried in the same cemetery. And they are buried right here. Now, Guy Castiglione is thought to be the shooter. However, in the car was David Harbridge and a couple others. Larry Skeeter Gaskins was one, but there was 4 people in the car. And then the president of the Dago charter of the Hells Angels, the one that orchestrated this, Thomas Renzulli, He's the only 2 that have passed away so far. So, but there's a whole line of Hells Angels here who passed away. Now, interestingly enough, the entryway to the cemetery right there. If you can see the gates over there, wrought iron gates. But you pretty much got to go right past the Hells Angels grave sites, and specifically the ones involved in the killing of those two Mongols. You got to drive right past their grave sites to get to the Mongols' grave sites. So just a bit of irony. So that's our story for today. So as you can see, this all started by basically a piece of cloth that had the word California on it, and it's all about territory. And that conflict still goes on today. You and I both see it in the headlines. Happens all the time, all over the place. The violence between these groups can happen anywhere. But in the Mongols world, as they're teaching their up-and-coming members about their history, if you read some of the books that former Mongols members have written, or watch some of the documentaries or videos that they've put out, they'll acknowledge that there's 3 wars between the Mongols and Hells Angels, and again, that the Mongols teach in their history. The first war is the one we talked about today, the shooting on the freeway north of Escondido. And then the second one is the 2002 shooting at Harrah's Casino in Laughlin, Nevada, which we've covered. And then the third act of war in the Mongols' perception is a big fight that happened at a motorcycle rally at the Queen Mary in Long Beach, California, between the Hells Angels and the Mongols, that left a Hells Angels member dead. So those are the 3 acts of war that they acknowledge. Those are the 3 acts of war that they teach their up-and-coming members that they have to learn about, and that kind of thing. So anyway, I thank you for watching, and we will see you next time on Discover This.